Hi there and welcome to a Christmas Eve edition of Forecasting with Friends. I need you to be my friends today, obviously, because I have none. Well, I mean, here. Hey, look, Merry Christmas, Merry early Christmas to you. It's going to be an interesting one. You know, Houston and holidays and weather very often clash. You know, we went through a period of time there from like the mid-2010s, I think it was around 2015, you know, a lot of the trouble started through early 2021 where it was like every holiday, it seemed, right? You know, we kept flooding on Memorial Day, and we had, I think, MLK Day flooding, and we had Halloween tornadoes one year. And it was crazy. Like, you know, we had a President's Day freeze and a Valentine's Day freeze. So we went through that period of time where, like, every time there was a holiday coming up, it got kind of scary because you just knew something was going to happen. And so here we go. We're heading into the Christmas holiday, and once again, we're looking for the potential for, at a minimum, some heavy rain, and at worst, you know, maybe some damaging wind and even some hail. So that's going to be our top story today. And so I want to kind of walk you through the latest, some of the changes that have happened from this morning. And in fact, it's sort of working out a little bit as I expected. So as we turn to the weather graphics here, this is a new update. Now, if you recall, if you were watching this morning, I'm not patting myself on the back or anything. It's just from seeing how these things develop. But NOAA's Storm Prediction Center went ahead and did move us from the green to the yellow, at least not for Houston, but for parts of our area. So that means that we've had a slight increase in the probability of seeing severe weather. And remember, you know, what is severe weather? It doesn't just mean heavy rain. Severe weather is defined by either having hail of 1-inch diameter or larger, having winds that are gusting above 55 miles per hour, or tornadoes would also make a storm severe. We don't expect tornadoes, but hail is a concern, and some occasional gusty winds are a concern as well. So right now, talking to those of you around Brenham and Chapel Hill, Washington, back over to Anderson and Navasota, the town of Montgomery, and back over to around Huntsville, New Waverly, and those spots, all under an increased risk now for seeing some severe weather. This will arrive actually as early as the late afternoon and evening hours, and then should culminate in a line of storms moving through your area around 11 p.m., maybe midnight tonight. This is the severe hail risk. So we're talking about what's the probability of getting hail of 1-inch diameter or larger. So in Houston, that sort of brown color indicates a slight risk. The slight risk is like a 5%, I think about a 5 to 10% risk area. And that means they kind of separate it into circles. It's kind of hard to explain, but they're basically the size of a county. So if you were to look at Harris County, for example, there's about a 5 to 10% chance of getting severe size hail in that area coming up here as we head into this evening and overnight tonight. A little bit higher risk for those same locations I mentioned, like Navasota up to College Station and out west to Brenham and up to Huntsville. You guys have a little bit higher chance for getting in on hail of at least 1 inch as we head into late today. Could even be potentially as early as like 5 or 6 o'clock today, but then especially overnight tonight. So here's the setup. An area of low pressure up there by Dallas is creating some trouble for them. They've even had some flooding this morning, actually. And then attached to that, we have a front that stretches down across the hill country. North of the front, temperatures are in the 40s and 50s. South of the front, we are near 70 degrees here in Houston on our way toward high temperatures that should make it well into the upper 70s. There's not that much rain out there right now, guys. We had some rain this morning. Most of that has sort of gone away for now. I think the next rain we're going to see is going to be popping up north of Houston, heading into around 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon. But for right now, the closest rain to us is offshore, and it has been causing some occasional rumbles of thunder near the coastline. This is the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we've had numerous advisories up there issued by the National Weather Service, mostly north of Fort Worth, where there was some flash flooding taking place this morning, and now some heavy activity around Louisville and heading back over to Plano. So these are areas that are getting the type of rain that we may get tonight. I think, again, especially north of Houston is where we might get a little bit more of the training heading into the late evening hours as we approach midnight, and then it should start to get some momentum and pass through Houston without creating anything too catastrophic. All right, we're starting to warm up, guys, up to 77 right now in Angleton. Those hotter temperatures to the south are going to sort of be the mechanism to drive some of the storms that are going to be forming across the area later on this afternoon. How much rain are we looking at? Well, this is the latest forecast again from NOAA and the Weather Prediction Center, and we're seeing these little kind of blobs of yellow, which is in excess of 2 inches of rain. So 2 to 3 inches of rain seems like it's a pretty safe bet across much of southeast Texas, even potentially in Houston, with a higher likelihood for that happening to the north in those, kind of same places that I just mentioned to you, like Walker County, Huntsville, from Montgomery and Conroe and Willis northward. For right now, here across our area, everything is, sort of looking decent. I mean, it's not a beautiful day by any stretch. We have had a few peaks of sun that came out just a little bit earlier. It looks like that sun is now hidden back behind the clouds. And again, those temperatures are on the warm side right now, with our latest temperature at Hobby Airport checking in at 72, along with breezy winds and an increasing dew point value. All right, so speaking of the sun, let's talk about the sun and something really exciting that NASA is doing. Scientists and astronomers are hoping that Santa Claus comes a day early this year. That's because today, a NASA spacecraft will pass closer to the center of our solar system than any human-made object ever has. Fox's Rebecca Castor tells us more about this mission to touch the sun.
3, 2, 1.
Hurtling towards Earth's closest star at an astonishing 430,000 miles per hour. NASA's Parker Solar Probe is on a mission to better understand the mysteries of the sun.
Everything that our sun does affects us here on Earth.
Launched back in 2018, Parker's journey is taking it about 90 million miles from Earth and will come within 4 million miles of the sun's surface. That sounds pretty far, but
if you think about a football field, if you put the Earth at one end zone and the sun at the other end zone, it's going to make it to the 4-yard line of the sun.
Parker is equipped with a state-of-the-art heat shield that will somehow keep its scientific equipment at room temperature, even though it will endure temperatures exceeding 1 million degrees as it approaches the sun's outermost atmosphere, or corona, the area that was visible during this summer's total solar eclipse.
This is where all of the activity that can impact us here at Earth, give us the beautiful aurora, northern and southern lights, but also impact our technologies.
Solar storms in the corona release huge amounts of electromagnetic radiation into space, which can affect satellites, GPS, even the power grid and other technology here on Earth. Scientists hope the data collected by Parker will help them better understand these events.
Being able to understand the physics is the next step to being able to eventually predict when one of these things is going to get to us, how strong is it going to be, and what's the impact going to be.
Parker's mission isn't over after its red-hot Christmas Eve. NASA says if things go as planned, it will continue to gather data on the sun for several more years. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
It's very cool. You think 4 million miles away from the sun. I think that's really far away, right? But we're 93 million miles away from the sun. And at 4 million miles, if you were out there, you would be cooked immediately just from the radiation coming from the sun. So very cool stuff. Up ahead, John Dawson is going to show us an extended view of this week's emergency gear test. So stick around for that. He will have that for you coming up next.
All right, welcome back to Forecasting with Friends. I'm meteorologist John Dawson, and this is the emergency gear test. Of course, it's the off season for hurricane season, so we take our hurricane gear test and we make it the emergency gear test, thinking about year-round preparedness for whatever might come our direction. We've certainly had enough practicing over the last couple of years that it doesn't take a hurricane. It could take a wind event or an ice event or a cold event to make us dip into what we used to think of mainly only as our hurricane preparedness supplies. And now I hope you're thinking again year-round emergency preparedness. Today we're talking about communications, and I've got some walkie-talkies here that we're going to be looking at closely. And just kind of a little bit of a background. We know from, Hurricane Beryl that sometimes those cell phone towers aren't as reliable as we need them to be. So sometimes the idea of getting some communication devices between certain groups, whether that be family members Or I think this is really applicable if you've got yourself in some sort of a group. Maybe it's within a church and you're out to serve people, or maybe it's within a neighborhood and you're like a community group, or maybe it's something broader than that, but where you are working together and you need to be communicating maybe while the event is happening itself, but probably more likely even just right after the event. And you're maybe looking to help people who are most in need at that immediate moment. And so sometimes that communications and the fact that our cell phones are not giving us that would be helped by some walkie-talkies. Now let me preface by saying these are high power walkie-talkies. These are 5-watt radios. The company's name is Talkie. Talkie is the name of the group, and they're out of Colorado, and they've really put together a great product here. This 5-watt radio is considered a GMRS radio, and that means legally you have to have an FCC license. That's the Federal Communications Commission. You have to obtain a license in order to operate these on high power. Now, there are some low power channels on here, if I understand it correctly, but because I'm not super clear on what's a low power and what's a high power channel that you can use on these, I didn't field test these. So most of the time when I show you something and I give you my rating, it's very well tested and reviewed. This will be a much more of an unboxing or just a show and tell, and not as much of a report of an evaluation on a product because I've tested this product. I, again, didn't go through the steps to obtain an FCC license, so I haven't operated these in a sense of using the communications. Now, one thing these do have are NOAA weather radios. I did operate the NOAA weather radio part of it, and I can confirm that those work as advertised, didn't have any problems. Those would be great to have in an emergency situation. I will say there are not a lot, but there are other ways to get NOAA weather radio and not having to buy something that's maybe this expensive. It's a side product for what other things that it's doing, but I think it's a great addition to put on a device like this if you're going to have a radio and you can, as a manufacturer, easily kind of put that NOAA weather radio into it. I think it's a great idea, and it's a great kind of safety inclusion into this. So let's talk about a few features here with the Talkie 5-watt radio. First of all, here on the box, we can kind of go through things. The battery life is very impressive. The battery life is listed at 4 to 6 days on a full charge. It has a rechargeable battery that's built in, and it's 1800 milliamp hours, and you just charge it with a USB-C device. It's USB-C. They even include the cable here. And then you can get 4 to 6 days charge without having to recharge it. So that's really some great extended life. I think in general, Talkie's done a good job of sort of addressing the weaknesses that come with walkie-talkies, and that's one of them. A battery life is certainly something that you struggle with. If you get something that only works 8 or 12 hours, that's not going to help you with an extended power outage. 4 to 6 days is a substantial amount of time. There's also the range that it talks about. Over here on this side of the box, it talks about the range. I don't get too focused on those ranges too much because most of these are made for outdoor recreational type areas. But in the owner's manual, it does say that it has about a 1.5 mile range in the city, which I think is important for us here in an urban area like that, is to sort of focus on those types of numbers. So assuming that that's at least close to being accurate or fairly accurate for somebody who wants to basically communicate within your neighborhood, I think that's a respectable range. That's a reasonable range. If you're trying to get a hold of some family that's way on the other side of Houston, that's not going to work so great. But if it is something that's a little bit more close by, that would be a good way to kind of deal with it a little bit. So again, let me just sort of mention the issue about the GMRS versus the FRS. The FRS is what a standard walkie-talkie uses. That's going to be family radio service, FRS family radio service. And those are usually 0.5 watt to 2 watts in power. And it's toys are made out of for walkie-talkies. It's also what some more recreational radios are used for. Rocky Talkie does make what they call their mountain radio, I think is what they call it. That will be a low power radio, the FRS radio, and that would not require an FCC license. So that might be something to think about, is maybe look into that one. That radio does not have all of the features, the ones I really like the most, like this radio has on it. But because it's GMRS, it's 5 watts in power. That's for general mobile radio service, and you are going to have to get an FCC license. Now, Rocky Talkie helps you get that license. Number one, there's a fee, $35. You're going to have to take care of that. There's online forms that you have to fill out, but it lasts for 10 years, and it applies to all of your immediate family. And there's no test that you actually have to take. I look at it a lot more as a registration process as opposed to a license, but I guess you can use your terminology however you want. Oh, excuse me, there we go, trying to find the weather radio right there. Indoors, this will not find the weather radio. I want to show you what's happening right now. This radio is currently in scan mode for the weather radio, and so it's searching all of the NOAA weather radio channels, trying to find that radio, that NOAA weather radio channel. I don't think it's going to do that indoors, but as soon as I step outside, it was able to find them. You also have a bigger antenna that you can attach onto the top of that, and that will also improve your range quite a bit as well. It comes with a little leash as some more of the accessories, and like I said, it comes with the USB-C cable that's included. So I do want to point out that these are sold separately. I've got 2 of them. These are sold separately. They're going to cost $180 each. And you got to have at least, 2 to kind of work together. They will work, I think, with those FRS radios. They will work with them, even if it's not maybe the same brand. And they will work with other mobile radios of 1 through 22 channels that are pretty standard. I think we've probably seen what's going on here. One of the excellent features is the IP67 rating, which means it's waterproof up to 1 meter in water for up to 30 minutes. I've got it scanning here as well, just so you can see that it's functioning, that the light is on. I've had this sitting in water for probably at least 15 minutes, if not 20 minutes, as we've been working on our production here. So waterproof is a great feature, certainly helps in an emergency situation, but I really think what it does more than anything is, as you're using these for recreational purposes, it gives you that freedom of not having to be cautious if you're in a boat or you're around a lake and you're having to try to protect it. Don't get wet, don't get wet. Let it get wet. It doesn't matter. You're not maybe necessarily throwing it in the water, but it doesn't matter if it gets splashed or even more than splashed. I think that's the freedom that it really gives you, having that IP67 rating, being able to be waterproof and not have to worry about trying to protect it necessarily. So I think we've kind of got most of the facts covered here. These are good radios, and I think they would be great if you're in the market to buy a walkie-talkie for your outdoor activities that you're interested in. Are they great for emergency preparedness? I think the fact that you have to have an FCC license is a big drawback. It doesn't give you just that freedom to pass it out to whoever you want or to have them available. I think that maybe for what I've been describing as the needs for a walkie-talkie system, perhaps the lower quality one might get the job done a little bit better. But I certainly like the waterproof, I certainly like the long battery life, and the NOAA weather radio is a great feature, because if there's a regional emergency or a disaster of some kind, NOAA weather radio does switches. It's not just giving you a weather forecast. It'll continue to provide a lot of important information besides just weather, and that's going to be a great way to do that. So I think you should certainly consider a NOAA weather radio as part of your plans, and maybe the purchase of a walkie-talkie like this would also be helpful. All right, I told you that they cost $180. Rocky Talkie is the name of the company. RockyTalkie.com is how you're going to find out more information. In order to see what I give on my emergency preparedness, my emergency priority scale, like a level of how important these are for you to purchase in your kit, you got to go to my YouTube channel to check that out. So go to YouTube, search Meteorologist John Dawson, and you'll see the full review that I give on the Rocky Talkie 5-watt radio. All right, that's going to do it for today's emergency gear test. We'll be back with more Forecasting with Friends after the break.
Welcome back to the show. Are you wondering maybe what the weather is going to be like for Santa as he departs the North Pole? Well, I got to tell you, it is cold up there. It's going to be about 15 degrees below zero. Snowy for takeoff at 9 p.m. By midnight tonight, flying on to warmer places is a good idea as those temperatures dip down to about 22 degrees below zero coming up by. I don't know why I read that like a NFL Films or something. But anyway, it's frozen tundra up there. Okay, lingering storms will be possible for us tomorrow when we take a look at your Christmas Day forecast. We're mainly talking about Galveston County and Brazoria County and Chambers County. Those are the areas that will have the highest chance for some lingering rain that could last through mid-morning. Otherwise, I think across the area by 1 p.m. we have a pretty good chance of seeing improving weather, drying out temporarily, and even a little bit of sun coming out. So I want to show you a couple of futurecast models here, and they vary a little. But overall, the theme remains the same. So here's the what's called our graph model. That's the Global Rapid Update Atmospheric Forecast model, and it's showing some storms to the north of Houston even this afternoon and evening. So we're talking about if you are working today, after work kind of time, dinner time, could get pretty ugly, potentially even in places like Spring and Kingwood and back up to around the Woodlands and Conroe. So that's a possibility. So just keep an eye out for that this evening. And then as far as the timing of the overnight rain, this is what it's showing us as of 10:30 as things really start to get rocking from College Station back over to around Huntsville and then making its way through Houston as sort of a slight risk for severe weather, more of a risk of some, brief heavy downpours and lightning and things like that, and some gusty winds with maybe a couple of embedded severe thunderstorms. But this graph model, I'm kind of hinting to, or leaning, I should say, toward this one. Because I think it just makes more sense that it's going to blow through. I will show you, though, this is the HRRR model, which is NOAA's computer model, which notice here, same theme, storms forming north of Houston, heading into this afternoon. So here's 6:30 with storms up there around Spring and Kingwood and those spots, and then the storms rolling in from College Station back up to Huntsville by around midnight, and then making their way into Houston here by around 2 a.m. So anytime, guys, between 10 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, just be advised that there could be some heavy downpours and ugly thunderstorms across the area. I will be back in just a little bit along with Delon Dillard for Fox 26 News at noon. Remember to download our Fox 26 Weather app so you can check it tonight. Head to the App Store and search Fox 26 Weather. See you at noon.